would request Dr. Bano Saidullah to please give a presentation and elaborate on the topics of heart and circulation.
Today I'll talk about the blood and the circulatory system in humans. After studying this lesson, what would you achieve? That is the various things which I have written. What you will be able to do, you will be able to explain the nature of blood, give the normal composition of blood, describe the various components of the circulatory system, and you will be able to write about the role in circulation, be able to describe the mechanism, how the blood flows through the various tubes and how it is pumped into the various parts of the body. Now, this is a very, everybody, you know there is blood, but what is blood? Blood is actually a connective tissue. The human body has 4 types of tissues. First, one is the connective tissue, the other is the epithelial tissue, then the third is the muscle tissue, and the fourth is the nervous tissue. Blood is a connective tissue. And what does that mean? It means that it has certain characteristics which makes it a connective tissue. What are the characteristics of a connective tissue? They are basically derived from the mesoderm. The mesoderm is the middle layer of the embryonic layer when the human being was being formed. And most of the connective tissue are involved in providing structure and support to the body. So the main functions of the connective tissue are to support the body, bind or connect together all types of tissues. All the bones are connected with the help of connective tissue. And then they also provide a mechanical framework through the skeleton, which plays an important role in locomotion. Now, the skeleton is also a connective tissue, which may surprise you. Now, why are these diverse things known as connective tissue? All the connective tissue have 3 basic elements. They have cells, they have non-cellular fibers, which are of 3 types. These are the collagens, the elastic fibers, and reticular fibers. And all these are present in a non-cellular matrix, which forms the ground substance. You can see the non-cellular, the fibers, and then you can see the matrix. This blue groundwork is the matrix. And all these tissues which we are discussing, like this blood and the bones, have this structure. But even then they are known as special because they look very different from the normal connective tissue. If I ask you how does the blood look, you would also say it is red, it is slightly thicker than water. So that is the main characteristics and appearance of blood. And it is slightly alkaline, which you may not know. It has a slight basic composition. And blood is composed of 2 parts. It has the fluid part, the plasma. This is the watery fluid which has most of the water in it, and it constitutes about 55% of the blood. Within this are the solid components. These are basically the cells which are found in the body, and these make up 45% of your blood. In the figure you can see these are the red blood cells, these are the white blood cells, and you have small platelets as well. How does one know that it has such 2 components, basically the plasma and the solid part? If you centrifuge the blood, it forms 2 parts. You have the plasma in the test tube above, and you have the solid component below in the test tube. And these, you can see the red erythrocytes are the red blood cells, you have the leukocytes that are the white blood cells, you have the white blood cells have number of cells called the basophils, eosinophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, neutrophils, and then you have the platelets. The blood plasma is, as I said, basically the liquid part of the blood, and it has about 90 to 92% of water. But apart from that, it has some solid components which consists of electrolytes, plasma proteins, fats, hormones, coloring substances like bile, pigments, etc. So along with water, it has some solid components. Now the blood plasma has proteins, and the important blood proteins it has are serum fibrinogen, which is derived or obtained from the liver, which comes from the liver, the serum albumin, which is also from the liver, And then you have the serum globulin, which is derived from the lymphocytes. That is, it comes from the white blood cells. This again shows the blood components. If you are you're tested for blood, this is how the blood is drawn, and then you have all these components. Now let us talk first about the red blood cells, an important component of the blood. These red blood cells are also called as RBCs. They are referred to as erythrocytes, and their main function is that they carry the oxygenated blood to various parts of the body, and once they lose their oxygen, they also get the carbon dioxide and they carry that back to the blood. Now the red blood cells are unique in the human body because you cannot see the nucleus in them, and their shape is also, you can see here, they are like this. They are without the nucleus, they are circular, they are biconcave, that is they have depressions both sides, and they also contain the hemoglobin, which is the pigment carrying which is the pigment which carries the oxygen and the carbon dioxide. Now then next, we know that sometimes when we are ill and we get a blood test done, then the erythrocyte count or the red blood count might not be normal, and so let us talk what the normal RBC count is. If it is a male, it should be 5 million per millimeter cube of blood if it is an adult male, and if it is a female, they should have 4.5 millions per millimeter cube of erythrocytes in the adult females. Now what are the, as I have been explaining these things, you may have guessed some, or you may have also read about some of the functions. Now what are the important functions of the blood? They transport oxygen and also carbon dioxide. They maintain the viscosity of the blood. They maintain the thickness or thinness of the blood. And they also maintain the acid-base balance. That is, they have a buffering, act as a buffering agent to maintain the pH. Now we will talk about the white blood cells. These are the other, as I've mentioned earlier, the red blood cells, the white blood cells, and the platelets. Now the white blood cells are so called because they appear whitish in color, and they are there are more erythrocytes. You have one type of cells, but in the white blood cells you have many types, but these are divided into two basic types. If they are granular, if they have granules in them, they are called granulocytes, and if they do not have granules, they are called agranulocytes. So they basically have WBC are basically composed of two types of cells, which are further divided into other types. So the initial division is agranulocytes and granulocytes. These are the new white blood cells. These are the agranular leukocytes, and these are the granular. You can see the lymphocytes and the monocytes are the agranular ones, and the granular ones are basophils, neutrophils, and eosinophils. And there are two types of agranulocytes called the lymphocytes and the monocytes. And the lymphocytes are divisible into two types: the small lymphocytes and the large lymphocytes. The other group is the granulocytes. They are also known as polymorphonuclear leukocytes. This name has been given to them because all of them have lobed nucleus, and on the basis of the nucleus they have been named. Now they are the neutrophils, the eosinophils, and the basophils. What is the role of the blood corpuscles, white blood cells in the body? The neutrophils and monocytes are the first line of defense against invasion of microbes. Once the microbes enter the body, these cells engulf the microbes. They have pseudopodia, that is, they extend their finger-like projections and capture the microbes. Apart from them, you have the lymphocytes, and in the lymphocytes, lymphocytes also are a defense or cell. These are the white blood cells that protect our body, and you can see neutrophils' lifespan is 7 hours and they are involved in defense. Eosinophils last for 8 to 12 days and they provide a defense they act against parasites. The basophils, they last for a few hours to a few days and they cause inflammatory response. So if you have an inflammation, that means they have been acting and engulfing and causing a inflammation at the site of the infection. These are the monocytes, and they form the immune surveillance. They initially detect invasion. These are responsible for antibody production. So they are they are also in the defense circle, but they act later. First you have the initial first, which I have mentioned. They act on immediately by engulfing the microbe. And then you have the T lymphocytes. They also have a cellular immune response in the body. The third type of blood cells in the blood are the thrombocytes. Normal platelet counts in adults is 250,000 to 500,000 millimeter cubed, and these thrombocytes or platelets are small, round or oval shaped biconvex cytoplasmic bodies. They are derived from the cells, and their function is, they are involved in clotting. They circulate in the blood and are 1/4 the size of the RBCs. They have granules, and if in the absence, that is why when you have dengue or any other disease, platelet count becomes very important. Now we have talked about blood, and I would like to talk about the circulatory system. The circulatory system involves the movement of blood within the body, and this is achieved by means of a system of pipes as well as a heart, which is able to move this blood. So the circulatory system is composed of heart. It pumps oxygenated blood to and deoxygenated blood through arteries, veins, arterioles, venules and capillaries. Now you can see the green part represents the deoxygenated blood and the red represents the oxygenated blood, and this is the heart. The heart's pressure is so much that once it contracts, the blood goes all over the body and returns back with the same one single contraction. It is not that you have some help from the veins and the venules, which have walls which prevent backflow of blood, but the blood goes to all the areas of the body, all the organs, all the tissues, and gives off its oxygen and takes back the carbon dioxide and other things which are now toxic for the body, and they go back along the deoxygenated pathway, and it is that same force which was generated earlier which continues to push them back into the blood. And so the heart is very important. It is a very muscular organ, and it lies on the left side of the chest. As I mentioned, it pushes the blood everywhere, and it is a very important part of the body, and the heart itself consists of 3 major layers. The first is the outer tough fibrous or pericardium layer that forms a bag-like structure around the heart, and it contains a fluid called the pericardial fluid, which acts as a shock absorber also to prevent any shocks. The middle layer is the myocardium layer, and it is highly muscular, and it is the contractile region of the heart. The innermost layer is not that strongly developed. It's not as strong as the thick as the myocardium, and it is called the endocardium. Now we will I'll show you the internal structure of the heart by first showing you that the heart is made up of 4 chambers. There are 2 atria and there are 2 ventricles. The walls of the atria are thin, and the atrial chambers act as a reservoir for filling of blood, which is then pushed into the ventricles, and the ventricles then push the blood forward. So the ventricles are more muscular than the atria. That is why the ventricles are thick-walled. The wall surrounding the ventricle is thicker, and the wall surrounding the left ventricle is thicker, because it is that ventricle which pumps the blood to, and that is the oxygenated blood to all parts of the body, and the left ventricle pushes the blood to the pulmonary artery. Now this is the heart, if you can see the structure of the heart, and the right atrium and the left atrium are not as muscular, and the right, it's an inverse, because this is a mirror image more or less. So the right atrium would be the one which gets the deoxygenated blood, and it receives the blood, and so the force in this, the blood force in this is not that much, and it has to pump the blood into the pulmonary artery for oxygenating it. So that means that this is not as muscular as the left ventricle. Once the pulmonary vein artery goes to the lungs, the blood gets oxygenated and then it comes back. So though it is called this is called a pulmonary artery, in effect it does not carry most of the arteries. All the other arteries carry oxygenated blood, but this is the only artery which has deoxygenated blood. And similarly, the pulmonary vein which comes back from the heart with oxygenated blood carries oxygenated blood. This is the only vessel in the body which, though a vein, carries oxygenated blood. So this is the structure of the heart, and you can see the valves which prevent the backflow of blood once it's gone from the atrium to the ventricle. And similarly, it prevents the backflow once the blood goes from the atrium to the pulmonary artery. In the same manner, once the blood is received into the atrium, this is the left atrium, this is the oxygenated blood. Once it is received, it goes into the left ventricle, and these prevent the backflow. So the blood flows only in one direction. And when this contracts, when the ventricle contracts and the blood is to go into the aorta, this valve prevents the backflow. So these valves prevent backflows. So the circulatory system, which is so the blood carries all the nutrients, gases and waste material through the body, and this is the basic function of the circulatory system. Now let us talk about, I have talked about the veins and arteries, that the veins carry the deoxygenated blood except for the pulmonary vein which carries oxygenated blood. Similarly, all the arteries carry oxygenated blood except for the pulmonary artery which carries deoxygenated blood to the lungs for oxygenation. So this is an artery. You will notice that the artery is thicker walled. This is because it pumps blood under great pressure, and the veins are thinner, and this is once the blood is flowing back into the heart, the pressure has decreased, so it does not need a lot of musculature. So this is, the muscles are thinner and the blood flows more slowly. That is why when you have to get an intravenous injection, the injection is given into the veins, never into the arteries, because it is flowing under tremendous pressure. And now you can see how there is a junction. How is the exchange, how does the deoxygenated and the oxygenated blood meet? The oxygenated blood and the deoxygenated blood meet by the means of capillaries, because these arteries break into smaller vessels. Similarly, the veins break into smaller vessels, and these break into extremely small, these keep dividing and subdividing till you obtain capillaries, and these capillaries of both the veins and the artery join together, and that is where the exchange of most of the oxygen takes place, as well as the food material. So you can see the structure, the three layers you can see, as well as the valve which prevents backflow of blood. So now the functions of the arteries, they are vessels that carry blood from heart to different parts of the organs and body. They always carry oxygenated blood. Now you can see a structure of an internal structure of the artery. This is the cut wall of an artery. It has three distinct layers, which are also called tunics. The tunica intima, which is composed of simple squamous epithelium called endothelium, and this is where most of the plaques will be found. Then this is the tunica media, which is the layer of muscle fibers, and it is thick. And then the tunica adventitia, this is fibrous, and this is protective for the vessel. I would like to describe the circulation of blood. Both the atria will contract together and both the ventricles will contract together. But for explaining this, I have focused first on the right atrium and the right ventricle. This is the region which is getting the deoxygenated blood, and the right ventricles of the heart receive it. First, what happens is that the blood from all over the body is received in the right atrium. This is received by two veins, the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. The superior means it is coming from the heart. Everything above is called from the brain. The inferior vena cava brings the blood, deoxygenated blood, from the lower part of the body. This enters into the right atrium. Once it gets into the right atrium contracts. That contraction is let me mention, I will be talking about it later if I have the time. that a heart is, has a rhythmic contraction. It is an autorhythmic contraction, and this contraction is within the heart tissues, and it causes the heart to contract and relax. So once the blood gets into the atrium, both the atrium, the right and left, will contract together, but I am talking about one at a time for you to understand. So the right atrium, once it contracts, it pushes the blood into the right ventricle of the heart. The heart has two important functions. The autorhythmic cells are present in it. They act as pacemaker. They set the rhythm of the entire heart, and they form the conducting system, the route for propagating action potential throughout the heart muscle. The conduction system ensures that the heart chambers, namely the atria and ventricles, become stimulated to act as effective pumps. So what happens is that in the atria, in the right atria, you have the sinoatrial valve, and this sinoatrial valve is located in the right atrial wall, just below the opening of the superior vena cava, and it has a rhythm which contracts, and this, when it contracts, it pushes its signal or action potential, moves from both the atria to the ventricle. This is the system that you have the sinoatrial valve, which causes both the atrium to contract, and then this causes a signal which causes the atrioventral valve, which is located between the two atria, and this causes downward conduction signal towards both of the heart sides, and the ventricles contract. This signal occurs only at between the atria and the ventricles, this AV signal, otherwise the heart is insulated. So this is the electrical conduction system of the heart, as you can see, and you can see that this is how the signal goes. This is the valve, the sinoatrial node. The signal goes here and it goes here, and so both the atrium contract, and it causes excitation in this area, and this area goes down further. The conduction goes down further towards both. There are two bundles called the right and left bundle of His, and this causes the heart to contract, the ventricles to contract. This is the basic electrical conduction system of the heart.
Thank you, Dr. Bano.